Welcome back. 51 of Europe's largest banks awaiting results from the latest round of stress tests. It comes amid reports that Italy's third largest bank, Monte dei Paschi di Siena, had received a last-minute rescue proposal from UBS. There are concerns about the bank since it has $50 billion of bad loans on the books. We're with Gerry Baker this morning. Gerry, what do you think we're going to find out today?
Well, we're going to see, we think, how badly positioned some of these banks are. I mean, this is one of the biggest challenges, bluntly, facing the global economy, certainly the European economy at the moment. The European banking system is very, very weak. Europe's had no growth, really, of any sort for the last 10 years, most countries in Europe. Italy has had zero growth for 15 years. These banks have got tremendous numbers of bad loans on their books. They're not getting any better. And the economy, by the way, is very dependent on banks to lend. They're much more dependent on bank lending in Europe than we are here in the United States. So these banks are a drag on the economy. They're a drag on the financial system. Many of them are perilously positioned, very weak capital. They really don't have enough capital. We're going to find out today exactly from the stress test each of the major banks how bad they are. Exactly as you say, Monte dei Paschi di Siena is the weakest. And there's going to be a big question about how this is resolved. This is going to be, look, everybody focused on Brexit a month ago. That was the big story, and understandably it still represents a big set of question marks for the European economy. But the really big story here is how weak is the European financial system and how weak is the European economy and how much damage is that going to do to the rest of the world. It could be, I don't think we're going to see it today, but the state of European banks represents another Lehman moment for the world economy because many of them just are too weak to survive. It's not clear they can be recapitalized, and they pose a tremendous threat to financial stability.
If people read the Wall Street Journal religiously, as we all do, they would know this, because on the front page you guys had a story in early July, I think, about just the Italian banks. And this is from that article. 17% of those banks' loans are sour, and that is nearly 10 times the level in the U.S., even at the worst of our financial crisis in 08-09.
And then there's something like a Deutsche Bank. I mean, we saw last week Deutsche Bank's performance, and the IMF said what? Deutsche Bank represents the biggest risk for the global economy.
Terrible results by Deutsche Bank this week. You've seen, and exactly as Dagan says, this is these banks are in such bad condition that this is. And why does this matter to us? The answer is those banks will have to be rescued. Several of them. The governments don't really have the resources to rescue them. There's a huge division between the Italian government and the European Union as to how they should be rescued. The European Union has got rules. The Germans, in particular, always come back to Germany and the way in which what Germany wants in the European Union and what the rest of the European Union wants. Germany wants to use creditors essentially to fund a lot of the bail-in, as it's called, to fund the rescue of these banks. The Italian government wants to use government public money, just as the US did back in 2008, 2009. And this is going to cause more tension within the European Union. So you've got a financial crisis continuing with the banks. You've got an economic crisis. We just saw data this morning from the Eurozone which showed basically no growth in France, very weak growth across the region. And you've got a continuing and rising political tension as a result of all of these pressures. It really is, again, it's hard to get excited about Europe these days other than going on vacation for, you know, and having nice food and drinking good wine.
But even there, tourism has plummeted.
It has, because of the terrorism problem. And then on top of that, so you've got all of these financial and economic problems, and you've got this terrible problem, you know, almost daily attacks throughout Europe. I mean, Europe, this is, you know, and by the way, you're seeing the consequences of this in European politics. You've already seen Brexit. You're seeing the rise of these populist right-wing parties in France, in Italy, in Austria, even in Germany. This is you know, people need to keep an eye on this because this is a steadily boiling problem that is going to challenge the rest of the economy.
Doesn't Britain's exit from the European Union actually empower the Germans' drive towards austerity, and that's going to impact these Italian banks even more?
It's a good question, Julia. I mean, the British were actually supportive of Germany anyway, for essentially on many of these issues. So it doesn't change the equation there. What it does is it does create more tension because it takes out of the European economy the second largest economy and the only one that was really growing with Germany, growing consistently, and it does create more financial pressure as a result. It does create, I think, exactly where you're right, is that it does create more pressure for the Europeans to try and come together, to get more integration, to get closer, but that then has a political backlash because the people don't want that. So there's this tension between financial pressure forcing the Europeans together and the political pressure of people wanting to pull apart.
All right, we'll be watching that story. Technology